Hi everyone, Stepan here. In today's daily chess test, I have a very nice position for you to solve, this first one. The second one is also pretty amazing and should be very instructive for you. Okay, without much talk, let's just get into the first position. This is Alexey Shirov from 1996. Shirov, of course, is known as one of the greatest attacking players of all time. So you need to find a move for Kramnik, white to play, and yeah, solve this position, solve it over a real board, time yourself 15 minutes per position, don't move the pieces, and write your analysis down. By now you should already have a notebook full of your analysis. Okay, good luck guys, pause the video, see you in a minute. Okay, this position came from a Slav defense, mainline Slav, the Alapin variation, where white plays the move a4. This is the position. You can find it. It should be up here if you want to look at the theory. And of course, white is a whole rook up for 4 pawns. So if white manages to trade off pieces, he's definitely winning this endgame. If you just trade the queens, it's easily winning. If you trade the queens and a pair of rooks, it's easily winning. So that's what white should be trying to do. On the other hand, if white isn't careful, he could easily be in trouble and get mated. Okay, so when I was analyzing this game, I had a very rough time going through this position and finding the correct ideas. So in my mind, if I want to simplify the position, the most obvious move was queen to f1. And that's the first candidate we have to look at. So queen f1 check. And after queen f1 check, black has the option of going king to b7, which loses straight away because white has this amazing move rook to d1. And I saw this and I thought, well, fine, that's winning. Basically, if black moves the rook, he loses. If he moves it from the d file, if he moves it, let's say, to d5, then just take. And once ed5 is played, this is game over because you traded a pair of rooks. Black can do nothing with the queen. However, after queen f1 check, black has an amazing move which I'd completely missed. And I have to say, well, I didn't choose to play queen f1 when I was analyzing this. I found something better, but when I wanted to play queen f1, I didn't see the resource black had. And that resource is b5, and this is amazing. So now, what do? Black is basically threatening mate. If we come back to the starting position, black's threat is simply rook to d4 and mate here, or king a5 and mate on a4. So if you start with queen f1 and black plays b5, he's threatening mate on a4, so you have to take it. You have to take on b5. If you don't take on b5, then it's just checkmate. There's nothing else to do. If you take with the pawn, you lose straight away because black plays king a5. And now a mate on a4 is unstoppable. Whatever you do, it's mate in a couple of moves. You can give up your queen, give up your rook and stuff, but it's checkmate. So after b5, the only sensible option is rook takes b5, giving up a rook. So in this position, if black does nothing, then he's losing. But black has this, I think, is very hard to see. Congratulations if you saw it. Black has this move rook e2, and this is enough to draw. Let's say you try to save your rook, which is what I would do. Let's say you play rook to b2. Well, now queen to d3 check, rook to b3, queen to d6 check, and it's a perpetual check. So this is just tremendous. This is just amazing. After b5, if you try doing something other than taking on b5, for example, you play queen f3, then this is mate. So the most obvious move, queen f1 check, doesn't really work because of b5. Now, my second candidate move was either queen f8 or queen e8. I couldn't really see a big difference other than that queen f8 prevents the black king from going to c5, which I thought was very important because my idea was to sacrifice my rook on b6. And after queen f8, for example, black of course plays rook to d4, threatening checkmate, or threatening to mate you in a couple of moves. And you continue with your rook b6 idea. King takes b6, and now if you play rook to b1, then you lose. Even though there's this trick of rook b1, queen b1, queen b8 winning the queen, black doesn't have to play queen takes b1. If you play rook b1 check, then king a6, and this is just 3 pawns up for black. Sorry, king a5, and this is just 3 pawns up for black. If you try checking again, let's say queen c5, then king a6, what do you do? For example, rook to c1, rook d3 check. This is going to end in a draw. If black messes up, if black doesn't mess up, then it should be winning. So for example, king to b2, rook to d2 check. Now white is the one who shouldn't be trading off pieces. So basically, black is winning this position. There is no more mate. Everything is secure around these two squares, and white doesn't really have any more checks. So after queen f8, rook d4, rook b6, king b6, white has to play queen b8 check. And again, this is a draw. King to a6, queen to c8 check, king to a5, queen to c7. You have nothing better but a perpetual. You're 3 pawns down. So if it's not queen f1, if it's not queen f8 and trying to mate, what else can you do? There is an amazing move which I did manage to find when I was analyzing this, and that's queen f3. And in the game, this was actually played by Vladimir Kramnik, and Shirov took the queen, which loses straight away because queen f3, rook f3. This endgame is just hopeless. It's over. You're 4 pawns up for a rook, but the 2 rooks are just amazing, and they're going to pick off all of your pawns. If you put this pawn here and this pawn here, then maybe black has a chance. But this endgame is just losing, and Shirov did end up losing. So after queen f3, a more resilient try is queen to d4. You have to, well, do something, decline the queen trade, threaten some checks. And now queen to c3 is the critical move, attacking the rook, attacking the queen. So queen has to decline the trade and keep defense of the rook, so queen d6 is the only move. Queen to b4, and now c5. And I got this far, and at first I thought, well, maybe queen b5, rook b7, a5, but then c4, rook b4. I wasn't really sure about this position. And then I saw that after queen to b4, c5, you can play queen c4 check. And after king to b7, it's all over. Now there are no more checks, there are no more mating threats, everything is locked. And basically any of these 4 moves is enough to win. You can either threaten to check on the 7th rank or to win one of the pawns. It's just game over. So I thought this was a really beautiful position to analyze, and it's a sort of position in which if you're in side knot, you can easily miss an opportunity to win this game. Okay, the second position is from one of my training games. And in this game I'm playing a lower rated opponent, but he is basically crushing me. I have a better pawn structure, but everything is pinned in my position, and I don't really have any chance to win this if my opponent plays perfectly. Now I know where I'd messed up previously, and I'd analyzed this position in great detail. But from this position on, even though everything is pinned, your rook on e2 has no moves, your king has no moves, your bishop cannot move, your c1 rook cannot move. There is a way to save yourself. Analyze the position, pause the video, again, don't move the pieces, and see you in a minute. Alright, so since you cannot move any of your pieces and everything is pinned, you have to do something else. And there is only one move, which you surely have found because it's the only move, and that's pawn to f3. But the follow-up is what matters. So black has 2 options, well, 2 sensible options, knight c3 and knight d6. Knight c3, what was played in the game, loses on the spot, and hopefully you saw the idea. Knight c3 is actually the reason why I'd played f3, because I saw that I would actually have a better position after knight c3. Now let's first look at the critical position with knight to d6, which is what I'd analyzed during the game extensively, because I wasn't sure whether this is good or bad for me. I just couldn't figure it out. I thought I could survive. I thought I was worse, but that I could survive, but I didn't know how much worse I was. So in this position, after knight d6, you continue rook d1 and pinning, and now rook to c3 is what I was analyzing. So basically threatening this pawn. So I have to play rook b1, rook takes b1, bishop takes b1, rook takes a3, and now rook e7 seemed most active. But after rook a4, I'm in trouble. Maybe king to d2, rook d4, bishop d3, let's say b5, king c3, maybe rook to f4 or rook to h4, and now rook to d7. And I will pick up one of the pawns. But whether black draws this position is... whether white draws this position is questionable. So this was the critical line. But I still think white holds. The engine gives this a slightly better for black. And I don't want to really get into the engine evaluation. It's about human play here and whether a human will have an easy time defending this or not. I still think this is holdable. So I think f3, even if black plays knight d6, is good. In the game, my opponent played knight to c3, and this is the second part you had to see. Now you can play two different moves. I don't think there's a difference. You can play bishop d3 or bishop to d1, and that's the key point. So I played bishop to d3, and again, black has two options. One of them is much better for him, which he didn't choose. The most obvious option is rook takes e2, which I'd expected. A much trickier move, which again you had to analyze, is rook to b3. You play rook e to c2, pinning the knight. He can play rook e8 check. If you go to f2, then he just repeats and everything's defended. But I found this idea to go up with my king. So rook e8 check, king f4, maybe this is a way to make progress. Rook c8, king e5, the knight is still pinned. And let's say rook takes a3, he grabs a pawn. And now you can play bishop b5 and get your bishop around and win this pawn. So again, this is a position in which I thought white was better, but I still thought black could hold. For example, king to g7, bishop to d7, attacking the rook, rook c7, bishop e6, maybe b5, pushing his passed pawn, bishop d5, b4. I don't know. We both have a passed pawn. Black should really have enough counterplay with his b pawn. Of course, not pushing it immediately because I take the knight. I don't know. But I still think this was better than what happened in the game. After bishop d3, my opponent took on e2. And I played bishop takes e2. He played rook c6, which is the only move. Otherwise, I play king d2 and win because the knight is pinned. And now I messed up. Of course, I don't want to play king d2 because knight e2 takes is an obvious draw. So I want to be able to recapture on e2 with my rook, or I want to force a position in which he cannot take my bishop. So I had two options. I could play bishop d3, which is by far the best move and wins on the spot. Hopefully you saw that. Or I can play rook c2, which I played in the game. After rook c2, my opponent still has a chance to save himself if he takes on e2. And now rook e2, for example, rook c4 should still be a draw, but a better endgame for white because of the doubled pawns. And after rook c2, my opponent played king to g7, and now it's just game over. The idea is that I'm going to play king d2. The knight is completely trapped, has no squares after it gets to a4, so he played knight a4, and I played king d2, and this just wins a piece because I'm going to play bishop b5. He played king f6, bishop b5, and this is what happened. And I went on to win. Now, since rook c2 still gives black a chance to save himself with knight e2, a much better move was bishop to d3. And now again you win a piece because there is no way for black to do anything about it. He plays knight a4, you play king to d2, and it's the same position. I'm sorry, you don't win a piece. There's a way to save a piece, but get a much worse endgame. He can play knight b2, and after bishop b5, the only move is knight c4, basically. Otherwise, you're just going to win all of the pawns after rook c1. So, knight c4 takes, d takes, and king c3, and this is a winning endgame. b5, rook b1, rook a6, rook b5. Of course, this is over. You're going to queen your pawn. So yeah, I thought this was a good defensive position to analyze because even though f3 is the only move, the follow-up or the follow-ups are pretty hard to find in my opinion, and there were some positions in which you could mess up. Okay, I hope you like the two positions. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you tomorrow with another chess test, and yeah, hopefully you got something from this. Let me know what you think. Please leave your opinions in the comments below. Ask me anything, and see you tomorrow. Thank you very much again. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.